Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So my friends at Geek and Sundry are building the fairy bow from Ocarina of Time in real life, and Nintendo totally just showed off the brand new footage from Zelda Wii U at E3. So I'm going to do a breakdown of that footage as well as my top 5 items in the game and some of the lore behind them. Just like Final Fantasy, the Zelda games have pretty good continuity when it comes to in-game items and backstory. There's a few small differences that I'll talk about for each item though. I'll also post a link in the description for the build video so you guys can watch Nika make the bow in real life. So first things first, Zelda Wii U. Because Nintendo's super hardcore about the way you use their footage on YouTube, I'm not going to post the actual trailer, I'll just post screen caps when I talk about it. The game is coming in 2015, they didn't specify spring or winter, but the biggest change is the mechanics and the way you interact with the environment. Obviously the artwork makes your eyes want to melt out of their sockets. It's going to be a lot more like next-gen RPG games where there's a story to follow, but there aren't really any environment boundaries in the game like previous installments. It's like one continuous world. You don't instance into new areas, so the game is just loading new environments continuously as you travel. Obviously, boss fights and encounters have been changed accordingly. As you enter new areas, you'll just randomly encounter enemies, and bosses will have patrol areas like in MMOs. So let me know if you like that it's starting to look more like an MMO, or if you prefer the classic mechanics. But I totally love the artwork, and I might have to buy a Wii U now. Shut up and take my rupees. It all reminds me whenever Ocarina of Time came out and melted everyone's brains. Ocarina of Time was the first Zelda game to come out on N64, and I think it hit around Christmas break from school, so everybody that I knew just disappeared for 2 weeks into their basement so they could play through the whole thing. Of all the Zelda titles, Ocarina of Time is still my favorite to replay. So here are my top 5 in-game items as well as some of the lore behind them. Number 5, the Goddess Harp. In the timeline of the franchise, the first time Link gets this is in Skyward Sword as a child, but it's also used by Princess Zelda in Ocarina of Time, and you could argue that it's almost the same thing as the Harp of Ages in the Oracle series on Game Boy Color. In Skyward Sword, it functions a lot like the Ocarina of Time in that it helps you unlock new challenges in the game and progress. In Ocarina of Time, Zelda only uses it to teach you new Ocarina songs, so in each game, the items get used in slightly different ways, even though the lore is similar. As the name implies, it came from the goddess Hylia. She was the goddess who stayed behind to guard the Triforce whenever the old gods left Hyrule. She eventually decided to take mortal form and then became the progenitor of the Hyrulean royal family. In the franchise, she became the first incarnation of Zelda in the Skyward Sword, but for example in Ocarina of Time, the Zelda we meet is her descendant. In all the games, the royal family always descends from the goddess's bloodline though. I think Ocarina of Time was the first time we actually met the gods, but each subsequent game continued to feature them. Number 4, the Silver Arrow. Next to the Master Sword, this is one of the most important items in the franchise. In the original NES games, you use it to kill Ganon at the end, and in later games in the franchise, they just turned it into the light arrows. It's the same item though, they serve the same function. And they cause enemies to drop hella extra rupees. In Twilight Princess, you don't actually get to use them, but Zelda does, and they serve the same function. In the lore, they're generally just magical arrows that literally pierce evil. In some of the later games, you actually find them as an item in dungeons, but in Ocarina of Time, Zelda just gives them to you once you wake all the sages up. That was also one of the first times we saw the sages, but after that they were incorporated into all aspects of the franchise. They serve as like the bridge between the Sacred Realm, where the Triforce is kept, and the physical world of Hyrule. On to number 3, the Magical Mirror. This only appears in Link to the Past, and you get to use it to travel between the light and the dark worlds, but you can also use it as a warp device inside dungeons. You obtain it by helping the Lost Old Man. That's the only name he's given, but in the lore, he's a descendant of the sages, and you eventually have to rescue his daughter, who's one of the 7 maidens, also a big part of the lore. The maidens are just like a female analog of the sages in some of the later games. You also learn a lot about the power of the mirror from Sahasrahla, who's also a descendant of the sages and helps teach you things inside Link to the Past. If you were ever a huge fan of Nintendo Power, they actually did a really awesome integration with Link to the Past. They incorporated this whole big comic and story. It was a lot of fun. Number 2, the Hylian Shield. In the game, it's the most powerful shield you can get, and it protects you from fire. Usually the shield is purchased, but Skyward Sword introduced some creative lore around it. It's guarded by the dragon Lunaru, who's one of the 3 sacred guardians appointed by the goddess to watch over parts of Hyrule. The shield is most notable just for its appearance and the crest. All incarnations of the franchise have used the same base symbols, which incorporate aspects of the goddess crest, the royal crest, and the Hylian crest. In Ocarina of Time, it's the Triforce and the Crimson Loftwing, but Skyward Sword actually did this really cool thing where they actually made the Loftwing a real bird that you get to use. In that game, you actually get bonded to the Loftwing, a lot like Daenerys in Game of Thrones gets bonded to her dragons. And my number 1 item, of course, the Master Sword. I think my favorite animation in the series is still Link yanking the Master Sword out of the Temple of Time during Ocarina. The sword was originally forged by the goddess as the Goddess Sword, and they later reforged as the Master Sword with the help of the sages. The goddess imbued the blade with feet, who's kind of like a spiritual avatar for her power. She's like a humanoid spirit representation of the goddess and gives you tips as you complete your quests in the game. Just like other items, Skyward Sword deepened the lore about the Master Sword in this really awesome way too. It incorporates this dark version of the sword wielded by Demise. It's implied that the goddess and the sages forged the goddess and the Master Swords as a result of Demise creating his own version of the sword. It's a very chicken and the egg type of argument that gets even more complicated when the game incorporates time travel. And even though the hero's bow and the light arrows are probably the most important items in the game, at least in the franchise, I still think that the Master Sword is the most identifiable symbol of the game, just because of Arthurian myth and Excalibur. But now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite Zelda game, and do you plan to buy Zelda Wii U whenever it comes out next year? In related news, I'm probably going to be doing a couple more lore videos on this channel, so be sure to leave me suggestions for what to do. After that, I'm just going to move them to my game channel, Charlie Streams. But right now, click here to watch Geek and Sundry actually build the hero's bow. It's actually really cool. And click here to watch all my other lore videos. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tonight. High vibes.